Welcome to the audio conferencing center. Please enter a conference ID followed by pound. After the tone, please record your name and then press pound. You're now joining the meeting.
Is anybody else here? No, sir.
Mike Royal's here, Mike Long. Haven't heard from Stan.
Okay, Stan, it's going to join in virtually.
I need to send him information.
So you could connect with him, and Butch should probably be joining virtually as well.
Yes.
Somebody just joined, but they didn't say.
I'm lonely at this end. Pardon me?
I'm lonely at this end.
That helped. You got a little space.
I know.
Something we need to know.
I don't know when he comes back. I don't have any place to put my bag, so.
A tornado warning has been issued for your location.
I plan to be back next month, Lord willing.
Hello,
I'll make arrangements.
For your location.
hello,
When you
Dr.
say it,
Mosley. I saw you called yesterday, and I apologize for not getting back to you. I'll call you after the meeting, okay? To go. I'll call the meeting to order and welcome everybody to the February 18th, 2021 State Board of Education Committee of the Whole. It's great to see everybody here this morning, and we are going to start things off with an invocation and pledge to the flag, and I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Martha Zoller.
Thank you, everybody. I wanted to take this opportunity really to talk a little more about an inspiration before we do the pledge. I have been blessed to be involved for the last 15 years with the Beulah-Rucker Educational Foundation. And Beulah-Rucker Oliver was a black woman who was born in Banks County in 1888 to a family that had been enslaved. And at 5 years old, she decided she wanted to be a teacher. And she taught herself to read by reading the newspaper that was plastered on her walls to help keep their home warm. And throughout the years, she knew that she wanted to be a teacher. She was the youngest of 8 children. And she went to the Knox Institute for Teachers. It was one of the few schools where a black woman at that time could go and get that kind of education. And along the way, many times she would have to stay out a semester or a quarter or a term, whatever they called them back then, and she would have to raise money so that she could go back. And during that time, she met a Pastor Oliver, and she married him, and they ended up moving to Gainesville into Hall County. And they opened up a school called the Industrial School. And it was just such an amazing thing because much of the money for the first building was given by the Longstreet Society, the widow of General James Longstreet, who was a Confederate general. And the bricks were from a hotel that he owned, and the wood was reclaimed from a building that he owned. And so you saw this kind of amazing working together of people that you wouldn't think would have anything in common in trying to create this industrial school. Also, Miss Rucker partnered with Sears Roebuck in Atlanta to be able to find out what skills, public-private partnerships, we're talking about it today, to find out what skills were needed and trained men and women on those skills so that they could get jobs afterwards. To raise money, she would do things like having wrestling matches and anything that you could do to raise money throughout this time. The school opened up in the early 1900s and was open until about 1961. And some of the history was lost after that time period because many traditionally black schools got merged in, and some of that history was lost. one of the things I love that she did is that she taught classes on how to be a good husband and how to be a good wife, in addition to the skills you learned to be able to be a great worker and a provider for your family. And so about 15 years ago, her grandson came to me, Rogene Bailey, and told me this story. And I said, I have to be involved in helping with this. And because this is a great story for anyone. It is an especially great story for African American women before 1950. I mean, can you imagine what she accomplished on her own? But her story was just inspirational in every way that I could look at it, and so I wanted to be involved. So over the last 15 years, we have brought back the museum, and she has been recognized by the state as an important woman in Georgia, and at Gainesville High School, which is where her school was kind of merged into back when all of this happened during desegregation. They have a new advanced studies building that is going to have the main floor named after her, and we're going to have a remembrance to her so that these students that come through this hall are going to see what one woman can accomplish against all odds. And so it's a story that I love telling, and I think it should be an inspiration to all of us. And at this time, we call this Black History Month. I kind of believe history should be every month, whether it's, and that it should be told. But she has made, even though I never met her, I've met her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, and her great-great-grandchildren. They all have advanced educations, and her youngest grandchild is at Spelman College now, and it's just great-great-grandchild is at Spelman College. So it has been just such a blessing to me to be a part of this family in a small way, and I hope that her story would be inspirational today as we think about things. Let's pray, please. Dear Lord, thank you so much for the people that you put in our path, the stories that we listen to and the stories that we tell. We are here to put children first and to be a part of your message that you want to put forth throughout the state of Georgia. God bless Beulah Rucker Oliver and her family, and thank you for bringing her to us and for the story that continues to be told about her throughout time. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Now we'll have the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Martha, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate your words. I want to just hear from board members that we have online so I know who's here. I did hear Dr. Mosley. Are there any other board members that are online currently?
Stan DeJarnett.
Hello, Stan. Thank you for joining us.
You got Leonte here as well.
Thank you, Leonte. And then Kenneth Mason, are you online? I think Kenneth may be on his way in, and we have Dr. Mosley. Okay, terrific. All right, and then here is Mr. Mason. Hello, Kenneth. All right, first thing, I want to do some guest recognition as well, and we have Keith Osborne with us, and Keith is a Deputy Superintendent for IT with the Department of Education. And then in addition to that, we have Leanne Cowart with us. Thank you, Leanne, for being here, and also Trey Allen. And with that, I'm going to step up to the podium here for just a minute. Leanne goes without any introduction to this group.
That is sweet of you to say.
Just with my heartfelt appreciation, I want to extend to you how much you've done for students across the state of Georgia. You've done a remarkable job. Your input and feedback in this board is incredibly appreciated, and I know that I'm not going to speak for everybody because I'm sure these people have some comments of their own, but I want to let you know how much I think of you and appreciate your friendship and all you've done. And then, of course, we have this beautiful engraved apple, crystal apple. And then we have your name plaque as well for you to take with you. But I'm going to let you make some comments here, and then I'm sure some people here have some comments as well.
Well, it's an overwhelming feeling to stand on this side of the podium and look at you from this perspective, from this position. Several people said to me, well, what are you going to say? What's your speech going to be? I was like, I have to give a speech? Miss Helen. So I wrote down a few things that I wanted to leave you with. And I brought my notes with me just so I would be prompt and not lose track and share with you some heartfelt things I jotted down in my quiet time. I know all of you, we all share something in common. One of the things, we all remember that phone call we got at some point in time that said, you've been recognized and we would like for you to serve on the State Board of Education. That overwhelming feeling, I don't know that there's anything else that comes close to that. I mean, when your husband or your wife asks you to marry them, you think about the commitment and what you're about to do, and it's easy to say because you're so in love and everything's going to be great. But when somebody asks you to serve in this capacity, my first thought was, kind of felt like Sarah when the Lord came to she and Abraham and said, you're going to have a baby. I laughed. I was like, are you kidding me? Not me. But here I stand, and on the other side now at this point. People would say it's an honor and a privilege to serve in this capacity. The honor is being with all of you. Iron does sharpen iron. And y'all have all sharpened me in ways and on different levels I probably could never put into words. It's really an overwhelming responsibility. A great man told me one time when I came to this position, he said, education is not a jobs program for adults, and neither is it a data collection service, but it is a mechanism of opportunity for every child to have success, no matter what their background or their life circumstances. And it is up to you to make sure that happens. And oh, by the way, there's 1.8 million of them. No pressure. I thought raising 4 boys was troublesome or responsible. That is a responsibility. Sometimes we get caught up in the fact that these children aren't really children. We desensitize ourselves here. They become numbers, they become statistics, and we go through all of that in the laboring process of policy and regulation and how we're going to implement this, that, and the other. And I said when I came on that policy starts out many times as a grand and wonderful thing, but by the time it goes through the matrix of life and rolls out into the classroom, it becomes something else. And that we have to be guarded about. So I charge you to remember that as you press that button to vote yes or no. Character is designed in terms of elements or virtues. And most would say there are 9 of them. I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget to tell you what they were. Courage, loyalty, diligence, modesty, frugality, honesty, meekness, reverence, and gratitude. The most important of all of those is courage. It is like a ladder, and the two sides of the ladder are courage, and they hold the steps of each one of those in place. Courage is a willingness to deny yourself, to choose what is right and wrong, and to stand up in the face of that and speak truth when no one else will, no matter what it will cost you. That is what you have to do here, because there are 1.8 million children depending on you to do that. Those children are the products of parents. They're the greatest gift ever been given. How do we manage that little gift that's been given to us? How do we ensure their success and their greatness? It's taking a whole lot of people to do that. I want to leave you with the fact that courage is contagious. When you step out in courage and speak truth, it will often stiffen the spines of others around you. Remember that. My mother would say to me, as I became a teenager and would leave to go out with my friends and do things, she would look at me, and she was my Sunday school teacher. And y'all, that's an equation for rebellion in some ways. She would look at me and she would say, "Young lady, you remember who you are." And I would look at her and I would say, "I am Leanne Kennedy. How am I going to forget who I am?" It took me growing and going to college to figure out what she meant. I knew what she meant, but I learned what she meant when I was outside on my own, making decisions that would affect me and my life and the friends around me. So I challenge you to continue to be courageous. Continue to think about those 1.8 million children. They all have names, and they all have faces. And I brought y'all a recent picture, 3 of mine.
You've been muted.
They
To
all
unmute
have
yourself,
faces,
press star
and they
6.
have names. They were each born with gifts and a purpose. And I'm entrusting everyone that's put in their path to do the right thing, to help shape and mold them to be the best that God will allow them to be. And I thank you all for serving.
You are no longer
I thank
muted.
you all for allowing me to serve with you, and for sharpening me many times when I was weak, and to correct me when I did not have rightful thinking. Thank you for all that you do in your communities where you live, as the individuals that you are, and for ensuring that this mechanism of opportunity continues to go. Thank you.
Leanne, Leanne, I just have to say thank you for sharpening us too. My mom also said if you can find 5 people in your life to be a good friend, it became that for me.
Thank you.
you. And thank you for what you did for the students.
Thank you. Thank you.
Leanne, a.k.a. Lily, a.k.a. Miss Thang. Hold on, I have to change before we go out tonight. Yes. Hold on, is my makeup okay? Everything good? Oh, yeah, we're fine, thanks. I want to tell you we've had some good times, some good laughter. You've kept me in check sometimes when I need to be in check. You are still a good board member to me. I think you did a fantastic job representing Georgia and the kids, and you will be sorely missed. They got some big shoes to fill with the new guys on board, and I'm telling you, You were going to be missed because your heart was in the right place.
Thank you.
And anybody that ever meets you knows that what your reason for being here was that mechanism. So,
Thank you.
and I love you.
Thank
I'll say
you.
it out
I love
loud.
you. Thank you.
And I'm also your filter for your boys' girlfriends too.
Oh, I know. That is the truth. That is the truth.
Leanne, I remember the first time you and I met, we were preparing for a banquet. I met you and Jeff, and I never thought that you and I would become friends, but we became acquaintances on that first day, and we are friends for life. I thank God for you and your sweet husband. He's such a kind man, and he gives me a lot of words of encouragement, and so do you. I appreciate you, and I am grateful to God that we will have a lifelong friendship just from a common meeting a few years ago. Thank God for you for all the work you did here on the board, and you, Helen, and I have coined us the Holy Trinity because we pray a lot together, and I thank you for that, and I just thank God for placing you in my life.
Thank you. I feel the same about you, Lisa. Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you.
You know, as Lisa was thinking, I'm thinking the first moment I probably saw you, I felt I was drawn to you, your spirit, that openness, and we've had so many conversations. You all, when I got an opportunity to give a commencement speech in Tolliver County, and Leanne opened for me. You know what that was like? She introduced me. And it was breathtaking and inspiring.
Oh, that was sweet.
And rooted in the Word, as you always have been. So thank you for being you, and continue to let your light shine.
I didn't say anything that wasn't true.
You never did.
I just spoke truth about you, and they needed to know who was about to speak to them.
Yeah, and anybody
Thank
that's
you.
gotten to know you knows that you didn't speak anything that wasn't true and in your heart. And that's one of your best qualities. And you were talking about how we've sharpened you. You've given more than you've got.
Thank you.
Leanne, you calculated it so well because you think when you get invited, chosen to serve on this board, that's the big honor. But the big honor was working together, and thank you for just making something real that we all know, but we don't often appreciate and don't realize. I mean, the honor really has been working together, and working with you has been amazing. It's just and created something we never had before, which was the ability to pull good things out of one another because of the people that are here. It's changed my life, but then also just a personal relationship together that I've built with members and certainly with you.
Thank you.
I'll treasure for a lifetime, and I hope it lasts a lifetime.
I do
So
too.
don't go far, even though you might not be here every month. Love you.
Thank you.
Leanne, the only regret I've got is that we didn't get as much time to work together as we have. And I've known you just shy of 2 years, and they've all been serving on this board up until now. And that's my biggest regret, is that I didn't know Leanne before the board service. But one of the things that I have found out in the 2 years of being around you and what others have to say about you, all positive things, is that you exemplify what we call servant leadership. And I appreciate all that you have done as an inspiration to me, to everyone at this table, those that came before you that have passed on. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate all that you've done for the 1.8 million students in this state and will continue to do in different ways. And thank you for all that you do. And I appreciate calling you a friend.
Thank you. Well, you live off almost in my parents' backyard, so we're not far.
Anytime.
This is the hardest thing in the world, to stand up here and listen to people say things about you. If you've never had that happen, you will at some point in time, and I just want to tell you it's a little overwhelming and it's greatly humbling. So thank you.
Anybody else? I want to share a couple of things, and like Jason, and when I came on board, you welcomed us, and that's part of your spirit. And what was really important to me was learning from you and listening to you. Without question, you're one of the most passionate people about education and taking care of the children, and the people and the children of Georgia are better for it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. If we could get a picture with, and we're going to have another recognition, but as we'll get a picture as a group, if that works for everybody, okay? And in like fashion, I'd like to have Mr. Trey Allen please step up here.
Yeah, follow that, Trey.
And I'm going to just kick things off here with, again, just a deep appreciation for everything you've done. We've had some spirited conversations. And the one thing that I will always say about Trey is he is a very active listener. And because of his role as a mediator, he is always trying to find something in the middle that works for everybody. And I think he's incredibly effective at that. And I appreciate your insight and your guidance and certainly your service. And we would love to hear from you.
And let me start by saying thank you, especially, Mr. Chairman, for, in all irony, scheduling me on the agenda after her. Thank you. Wow. You know, that would probably be the best thing to do. In all of Thank you. In all my years serving on this board, I've seen many former board members stand up here when it came their time to step away, and I always wondered, what will I say or do when it's my time? And then, before you know it, and when you don't expect it, it happens, and you're here. And Leanne asked me last night if I'd written my speech or if I'd prepared my remarks, and I hadn't. I still haven't. I've jotted down some thoughts, but so if you'll bear with me, and I'll try not to be too long-winded. But when Governor Deal reached out to me and asked me to serve on this board, I had a very nice position at the Department of Community Affairs. I would go up once a month. I'd drive up from Augusta. They'd serve me breakfast. We'd have a 2-hour meeting. Then they'd serve me lunch. Then I'd go home. It was great. And we actually were doing things. It's an important service. And I had to think about it. I'm like, gosh, I've got a lot on my plate, but this is an honor to be asked to do and to serve. So I took a couple of days, but I finally acquiesced and agreed to serve, and it has been one of the greatest decisions of my life and proudest decisions. One of the things he asked when he called me was that I serve. That's it. I serve the children of Georgia and the people of Georgia for the future of Georgia. No agenda, no pushing specific items or policies or telling me what I need to do when I get on here. He wanted me to serve. He trusted the people that he put on this board and that were serving on this board. And he just wanted us to do what was right for the children and the people of Georgia. And I think that's all we can ask of any of us that serve on these boards. I'm extremely proud of my tenure. The lifelong friendships I've made, I cannot put a value on. I would not trade for anything. The honor of having served for the education of the youth of Georgia is something that is beyond words also. I'm very proud of the efforts that we made together, especially the initiatives, school improvement, school choice, accountability, school climate, those 4 things that we focused on in the beginning of my tenure, I am so proud of. Sadly, we seem to have, as a body, as a department, lost the heart of some of those measures. I would encourage all of you to look at the value of those items and find that value and reinstate the initiatives and encourage your fellow board members and staff to think about those 4 things that we worked so hard on over the most recent years and their value to the people and the children of Georgia. I challenge you all to borrow on the theme of Leanne. Find courage. Find the courage in yourselves and inspire the courage in others to lead, especially in these challenging times. I mean, the children of Georgia today, children of our nation, the children of the world have so much to overcome. I can't imagine a more trying time in our society to grow up in. The challenges are beyond counting, from the tangibles such as the current pandemic we find ourselves in, the challenges of learning from home, the challenges of technology, of social engineering, of so many things. It is not easy to be a child growing up, and it is our charge as adults, and your charge specifically as state board members, to do everything in your power to make that path easier and better for the children. Margaret Mead once said, teach the children how to think, not what to think. Please keep that in your mind as you deliberate over the next months and years that you serve. I'll miss this board very much. I'll miss these people, the staff, the people that make up this building and a few floors on the other side, and all of you very much. Like I said, I've made lifelong friendships that I never expected and that I will treasure forever. But you know what? You don't have to be on this board. You don't have to serve on any board. You don't have to have a title in your name to take up the charge of doing what's right and to serve Georgia and to serve the children. And I'm here to tell you that I will assure you it's a challenge and a mission that I'm going to continue to strive for, the children of Georgia, and educating them and giving them the opportunities to lead their best lives. We stand on the shoulders of those that came before us. I'll paraphrase one of the great previous board members that I was privileged to know, Ms. Barbara Hampton, that so many of us know and love, when she said, when it was her turn to step down, that we plant trees we know we shall not sit under the shade of. That is your charge. That is your mission. Please keep the end goal in mind. I have led a blessed and charmed life in so many ways. I am the luckiest man I know. And with all of that, and all of the gifts and blessings I've received in my life, serving on this board was one of the great ones. And I thank you all for that privilege and opportunity. And I wish you all Godspeed in your endeavors. Thank you. Yeah, no, now I'm the tackle dummy for a few minutes.
Tackle dummy, you're a friend. You mentioned, Trey, that it's amazing how God works. That it's by chance the people you meet who you weren't even expecting to be your friend, who become lifelong friends, and that's what you are to me. And I look forward to seeing you and working with you. And, you sending over the lottery numbers when it's your turn to pick those out, but no. Scott was right when he said this board has so many personalities and it's going to continue to change and move and ebb and flow. But over the years, you've been one of the calming influences of reason and logic, where sometimes we get heated and we forget that. It leaves the room, and you've got the ability to bring that back. And I will forever call you friend, and I look forward to speaking with you very soon. Because this place, of the new ones that haven't figured out, it's like the mafia. You don't get to leave even when you're gone.
Thank you. Thank you, brother.
Trey, number one, you lied. You said you weren't going to talk as long as Leanne.
Sure, if the clock
You started off
would
bad
argue
right
with
off
me.
the bat. I took it as my charge. When Trey first got here, it was just so serious. And I took it as my charge to lighten you up. But I can't tell you how many times we've been out, or even in meetings, he goes, Mike. And I didn't know if that was not PC or if what I was doing wrong, but it was Trey's job to try to keep me in line. And I wish we had a screen show or a slideshow we could have thrown up there. I finally, and me, Kevin, and Trey in front of right across from the Omni, somewhere when the hotel we stayed at when we got moved all around town. And I've got him the best pictures, and if I can find it, I'm going to frame it and send it to you because it's finally got you
I've already got it
up
framed.
and loosened up enough. But I will tell you that I appreciate the fact that you always, like Mike said, have an ability to bring intuition and knowledge and professionalism to subject matter. Not only that, but I can tell you, and I talked to Matt last night, you got big shoes to fill because you love the children of Georgia and you were passionate as well. And we always will be lifelong friends now that you've got rid of 5 phone numbers in your repertoire. Thanks, Trey.
Thank you.
As one of the newer members, and with pandemic and all that, we haven't been able to be one-on-one very often, but I want to say how much I appreciate the way you approach discussion, the way you approach when we're trying to get to a certain place. You made me feel very welcome. You made me feel valid. And, I don't come from an education background, although I had 4 children in public schools and I've volunteered on committees and did all the things that people do. But I appreciate you very much, and I look forward to getting to know you better as time goes on. But I really appreciate being able to have debate and discussion in a very calm and open way. Thank you.
Well, Trey, what can I say? We sat right over there together, and you were very quiet at first, but I appreciate the same thing everybody else has said. I feel like we all are great friends, and I can pick up the phone and call you whenever, and you'll answer and have a great answer for something. And I just appreciate that steadiness that you gave to all of us. And you and Leanne both have that courage. I've seen it. And I just hope you know that the friends are still here, and we come visit us again. And I know you'll be working for the kids of the state of Georgia because that's in your heart, and that's a mission, and you're both servant leaders, and you've done it all your life. And we appreciate you for you and what you gave to us here. Thank you.
Trey, thank you so much for all that you gave to this board and for holding down Mike Long, Mike Royal, I'm just kidding. But, I really appreciate all that you have given for the children in the state. And you and I we're on the same wavelength. We match, so we're here together
Thank you for the
today.
color coordination today. I appreciate that support.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate the board meeting that we had in Augusta, all the work you did and everything. It was, it was just really, really great. And the people we got to meet and the bridges we got to build, and it was just wonderful. And all the work you put into that. After hours, even late at night, you said, well, I got to go and take care of this so I can get back early in the morning. You and your wife, Susan, I really appreciate you guys. And thank you so much for your friendship. When you first came to the board, you were quiet. I knew your cousin.
I was that quiet.
I knew your cousin asked him about you. He said, oh, he's a great guy. So, getting to know you has been a sheer blessing and a pleasure. And I bid you Godspeed and look forward to hearing from you. When things go on, I have your number. I will call you.
Please do.
So you take care, and God's blessings to you.
So I got the pleasure of sitting next to Trey. Quiet is not Trey. Yeah,
I know.
Well, so I had Trey here and Choke is here. And I was sponging up from both. And seriously, deepest of thinkers, Trey. And sometimes the questions never surfaced, but they were there. And sometimes he would just turn and say, what about this? Deep thinking on everything. Nothing passes by. And I appreciate not only your professional experience, but I soaked up a lot of your fatherhood experience. And the passion in which you do that job, that duty, has been a spark to me, looking forward to my future. And so thank you for helping me learn to question and inside my head deeply, but also to be able to share those thoughts, those notions that push the envelope and push our board to where we needed to be. Thank you, Trey.
Thank you so much. This is very hard. Yeah. Thank you guys so very much.
I don't know if y'all can see that, but that is.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Trey loosening up, believe it or not, he can't have it.
I wanted to say, and Lisa, you had mentioned the board meetings in Augusta, and that's really where I think I got to know you. We'd served on the board together for a few months, and then we had the retreat in Augusta that you had put together in 2019, and that was phenomenal. And it struck me, and I didn't even get to stay for the whole thing, but I stayed for a large portion of that. And I think I was having a conversation with Scott Johnson or Mike Royal, and they said, you know that Trey did all this, right? And I said, what do you mean Trey did all this? And they said, Trey put all of this together. And so when Leanne was up and I mentioned servant leadership, I think you exemplify that as well. And I appreciate all that you've done for this board, for your service before this board, and the service that you will continue to do for the state of Georgia. And I know that when we look at leaders and whether or not their hearts are in the right place, I have no doubt about Trey Allens. And I appreciate all you do. I am disappointed that a fellow bald-headed person is leaving the board. So in any event, thank you for all you do.
They can start turning the lights up a little more now. The glare will be less.
Trey, I want to thank you for being able to serve with you. You know, and I'm glad you all brought up the retreat, because that was some amazing work that you and
The staff really did an amazing job on that.
we know.
Please don't give me all the credit.
But anyway, no. But you know, it really takes some ground level work to do that. Whether you know, and I appreciate what you did in Augusta, because I was chairman, you handle it. But you know, yeah, we all come from different, diverse places, not just geographically, of course, that's provided for by law, but in our backgrounds and our experiences. And we all hope that we make a difference by what we bring, and do that for the good of the children of Georgia. But I want to assure you something, because I mean, we've been great friends, and we will remain so for a long time, I know. But I hope, and I know we all do, that what we bring to the table makes a difference, and some wisdom. I want to assure you of something. You did. You brought your wisdom, your temperament, your experience, and I benefited from it. I know, because I know all those folks out here. We all did, and I appreciate that, and I thank you for it. And whatever your future pursuits are, well, I hope part of that will be you and I having lunch again at Miss Jane's in Warrington, like we've done before. But I'm on Team Trey for whatever you decide to do, because I want to continue to benefit from our friendship and your wisdom and experience, and let iron sharpen iron between us.
You know, when Barbara Hampton, when several of us came on the board, and this is a working board, as you know, and we were told it was a day and a half, you know, and it's almost a day and a half that you're not. But her statement of, you know, this board is not one that you just pick paint colors. I mean, y'all remember that? Mm-hmm. So, and you came on, and as Scott and everyone has said, you and Leanne both put your heart and soul into it because you love kids, and we appreciate that. But back.
Thank you all so very, very much, and
Trey,
I'm a better person because of it.
I just want to say thank you. We sat beside each other last year in the meetings that were here, so you were my board buddy. When I had questions, I could just lean over and ask you a question for some clarification. So I thank you for that, for making me a better person.
Thank you all so very much.
Well, if you had to sit next to Fenna over there, she's probably jabbing you. Again, thank you so much for everything you've done. I've really enjoyed getting to know you, but you did a remarkable job there. And what I really, really appreciate about you is that ability to kind of bring everybody together. And Kenneth said something I think is really important. It was always a deep dive into the information. I mean, you didn't really leave any stone unturned into your decision making. And I know that will hold true going forward.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
If we could have everybody come up and find a volunteer to take a picture, that would be great.
Probably better ask me.
Communications. I'm happy to help.
Just for the 5 minutes.
I wasn't good at
Just for 5 minutes.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Come right back over.
Lisa.
Then I should be in the back. It's a lot of things.
I'm pretty sure they won't. May I have your attention, please?
All right. As a reminder, if you can't see me, the camera can't see you.
Thanks,
So-
Matt.
All right. All right. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Got it.
Thank you guys so very much.
Share that whoever's camera that is.
That was not a COVID-friendly hug.
It wasn't a COVID-friendly hug. I'm serious. I've many times. Thank you for everything. It's been wonderful getting to know you.
You're right. About what you're going to say when it's your turn.
I appreciate it. That was very kind.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just got really scared when you started. That's when you're, I'll just let it all out. It was like, you didn't talk about that.
Richard, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Keep working for the kids. Some sunshine. I know. We're just gonna have to send it. We'll still be around. I mean, it looks like everybody's gravitating together.
What is it?
That would be great. Oh, yeah. No, don't. No, leave.
Thank you, Debbie.
Brother, thank you so much for the kind words.
Everybody online, we'll get started in just a couple minutes here.
Will be.
And I'm with you, no matter what. Always.
If you run for Congress.
Well, that won't happen anytime soon anyways.
Well, let's start.
Did you look
Good
at
to see you, sir. Thank you very much.
No, okay. I'm just wondering what my thinking
Thank you all
was
so much.
when I put on these
Thank you,
videos.
Trey.
I love those Savannah.
I saw that.
All right, let's go ahead and get started again. First order of business is approval of the agenda. And based on our conversations yesterday, it's my understanding with regard to the Budget Committee, items numbers 1 through 7 and then 9 through 12 will be moved to the consent agenda. And then item number 8 will be pulled for a separate vote. Is that everybody's understanding?
Yes.
Terrific. For rules and flexibility committee items, Dr. Mosley, it's my understanding that we have all items under rules and flexibility, that's items number 1 through 5 that are moving to the consent agenda. Is that correct? That is my understanding. Everybody else? Any questions? Okay. Then it's my understanding we do not have any items for state committee. And then we do have the approval of minutes, and then the executive session items that will be presented by Ms. Kinnamore that include personnel, legal, and appeals.
February 2021 personnel report, February 2021 legal report, individual student waivers, minutes of the January 16th, 2021 state board meeting, and the minutes of the January 15th, 2021 executive session meeting.
Terrific. Okay, does anybody have any questions? Well, first of all, the chair, based on that information, will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
I have a first from Mr. Donaldson. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Ms. Zoller. Is there any questions, comments, or discussion?
I have another comment. I think we have at least one legal pull for a separate vote.
Sorry, Lisa, can you speak up just a little bit? No, ma'am. We only have one dismissal, which would be consent item and one, and the other one is an affirmation.
Okay, all right, okay, thank you. You're correct.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kinnamore, keeping us on our toes. Any other comments or questions? All right, Chair will entertain the vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed?
Aye.
Is Leonte online?
Yes. Aye.
Okay, and I heard Dr. Mosley, so the vote's unanimous. The agenda is approved. All right, and with that, we'll go ahead and just jump into it. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
First from Mr. Donaldson, a second from Mr. Johnson. Any comments, questions, discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That vote is unanimous. We'll move on to item number 8, which is the TL contract GRE 4T grant for the Southern Regional Educational Board. We're pulling that for a separate vote, and the chair will entertain a motion to approve the item I just presented.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
First from Mr. Donaldson, a second from Ms. Rice. Is there any comments, questions, or discussions? All right, we're going to do a roll call vote on this. So I'm just going to go ahead and call the roll, looking around the room. Ms. Zoller?
Aye.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Mr. Royal?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Kinnamore? Mr. Downey?
Yes.
Ms. Petty?
Yes.
Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
Mr. Leonte Benton?
Yes.
And then Dr. Mosley?
Stan.
Oh, I'm sorry, Stan as well. Stan, you're online?
Yes.
All right. That motion carries. Debbie, did you record the vote?
Did you say Mason?
All right, now we will move on to Rules Flexibility Committee items, and the chair will entertain, actually, we approve the consent agenda, so all those items are approved. Mr. Long, we do not have any items for the State Schools Committee. Items for information, is there anything?
Let's see. Again, this is just more for items of information. I do want to make the board aware that today we will be resubmitting our waiver for testing up to US Ed. This comes with, in accordance with agreement from the governor's office as well. So that's where we are with that.
Any questions or comments?
So are we asking to, what are we sending to?
Again, with the testing waiver, as we've submitted, that we will.
Oh, the same waiver?
Same waiver.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Any further questions for Superintendent Woods on that matter? All right. At this point in time, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes. These are the State Board minutes for January 2021 and for the executive session minutes for January 2021 as well.
Motion to approve.
First from Mr. Donaldson, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Petty. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. It's unanimous. Ms. Kinnamore, I'll turn it over to you for the executive session items.
Okay. Motion to move all the consent agenda, February 2021, personnel report. There we go.
February 2021 personnel report, February 2021 legal report, individual student waivers, minutes of the January 16, 2021 State Board meeting, and the minutes of the January 15, 2021 executive session meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, second from Mr. Donaldson. Any comments, questions, discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. It's unanimous. I'm not aware of any other business items. I will discuss some items in the chair report, and then we have the superintendent's report. I'll turn this over to Superintendent Woods.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Today we have a presentation on the Georgia Home Classroom. And I think Dr. Dooley or Justin, I believe, is leading this. Is this correct?
Yes, sir. Justin, I'm online,
Okay.
and I'll lead that.
All right, well, Justin, I will turn it over to you, and I guess if we have anything to upload, we'll go ahead and do that. Chris, please.
You got it. I don't see this.
we're live here, Justin. We
I
see the
can't see it
slides.
on my screen, so I don't know what slides are showing.
It's just the intro right now.
You got it. Tell you what, I'll just pull up my slide deck since it's the same, and I'll just click next slide. All right, there we go. I see it now. All right, while that's getting ready, good morning, Superintendent Woods, Chairman Sweeney, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I'm Justin Hill, Associate Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction and Now School Climate. And today I'm going to provide a brief on the Georgia Home Classroom project. The Georgia Home Classroom is a joint venture between the Georgia Department of Education and Georgia Public Broadcasting and managed by Curriculum Instruction and School Climate to respond to the impact that the coronavirus would and is having on our education system. Initial planning started in February, but quickly ratcheted up in March as it became clear the entire state would soon be in a 100% virtual posture. And students would be in their, quote, home classrooms, as it were, and hence the genesis of the name, Georgia Home Classroom. With the roles of teachers and parents blurred, it became apparent to me and GPB Director of Education, Laura Evans, that only by combining our efforts to help teachers and parents to keep Georgia learning would we be able to make a dent in the possible learning losses that might ensue. So today I'm going to go over a few data points to demonstrate the utility of this project and highlight a few of the most demanded resources that we know are making a difference in Georgia's classrooms. So right there at the beginning, you'll see that on our key takeaways that we launched this in less than 2 weeks. One of our first assignments was to curate all of GPB's resources and align them to the Georgia Standards of Excellence because when this pandemic was first really wreaking havoc across the state, we really had fears that that GPB and maybe their broadcasting to the radio and TV might be the only way that that teachers and parents would have access to resources. So right now we have 104,000 users of this Georgia Home Classroom, and the most popular thing that we have that I'll go in detail later on are the remote learning plans, which we have almost 14,000 possible educators. And this is all made possible by a lot of funding partners, both internal and then external through the Georgia Foundation for Public Education, Get Georgia Reading, GPB, of course, and here at the department. So next slide. I'm still seeing the key takeaway slide.
No, we're on the next slide, Justin.
Oh, gotcha. Very quickly, you'll see that we've got 252,000 page views for the Georgia Home Classroom, and again, 104,000 users. As a comparison, the top 10 DOE pages combined equal 185,000 page views for a one-year capture. So we know it's being used, and that's really good news. Next slide.
Okay, Justin.
There's a delay on my end.
Yeah, it's up.
I don't. There we go. Very quickly, you'll see that the users come all across the state, so it's not necessarily just a metro usage. You'll see that some of the top 20 users outside of Metro Atlanta combined equal those in our Metro Atlanta. So we have a lot of variety of users in non-metro areas. So that's really good news. Next slide.
It's up.
Wow, there's a significant delay on my end. All right, let's just go to the next slide after that one, since there's a delay. So one of the very first projects that we worked on was the early learning guides for parents. We started getting a lot of parents contacting both my division and GPB from parents asking how will I know that my child is ready for school. So we came together and developed some K-3 readiness guides that would indicate some key skills that parents could work on throughout the summer. And you'll see the launch date there on the, I no longer see my screens anymore, or my screen. So I'm not sure what slide's being.
Yeah, we got
some of
the
the challenges.
yeah, we got the.
Neither do we, Justin.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is stand adjournment. Yeah.
Copy. I guess some of the challenges of being in this this new remote environment. They are good. There's some examples of some of the early learning guides. That was one of our first projects that we got out, and we are certainly trying to get it out before parents or before kids would be out of school when for the summer. We have English and Spanish guides. Right now we're working on grades 4 and 5 and expanding to include notations for nutrition and fine arts. And next slide. Yeah, that's much better. The very next push was to make sure that we spent most of our summer gearing up for remote learning plans. With it being up in the air whether schools would be virtual or in person or a combination therein, or going in person then having to retreat to virtual that we've seen, we knew that teachers would need some help in developing remote learning plans for plugged and unplugged environments. And right now we have 200 plus remote learning plans in all the content areas, with more coming. And again, this is the most highly demanded things that we have on this on Georgia's Home Classroom. Next slide.
Go on to slide 9, John.
Thank you. And a screenshot from the Georgia Home Classroom is our Let's Learn Georgia. This is our instructional videos. Again, the remote learning plans and these videos are all from Georgia teachers. So we wanted to make sure that people had confidence that the learning plans, both videos and the remote learning plans, were done by Georgia teachers and all were aligned to the current standards. Right now we have 23 learning videos. Our newest one is on classroom climate engagement, and we hope to have 60 by the summer, and 21,000 plus page views and 11,000 users. So some of those surprising users have been from the College of Ed, as teachers are actually using some of these as they prepare for the workforce. Next slide. Which would be slide 11. Also, GPB, they worked on programming schedules with daily activity to support education. So this is some products that they already had in their catalog of things, and then we helped them curate those with the standards. And then slide 12. You'll see that Get Georgia Reading campaign has incorporated a lot of these projects and products on their page for just for maximum exposure out in our education ecosystem, as it were. So anyway, this is just a brief snapshot of the Georgia Home Classroom and some of the things that the curriculum instruction and school climate have been engaged in to help address the needs of teachers out in our state. If there's any questions, I can entertain those or turn it back over to Mr. Woods.
I do have a question, because the classroom can you show that when I was talking to Scott and Richard about this, that's what I had seen, and I thought this is great information, don't get me wrong, and great data, but I wanted you to show the classroom expectation, that video. It was new, it brought innovative ideas for not only online learning, but back to the classroom. It was a different twist with PBIS, positive behavior intervention, and so is there any chance of getting that up to show that?
Locally, I think you'd have to go to the Georgia Home Classroom and go to Let's Learn Georgia page and then
I've
open
got it
that
on
up.
on my phone, excuse me. I guess I could send it to everybody to see individually, but it was so powerful, and I wanted to hear from y'all with that. As you said, it had a teacher on there, and it had your Jason and the staff here that had put it together, and it just brought PBIS back down to some real concrete measures of how it evolves in the classroom and how it's working through this new pandemic period. So if we can't
I appreciate that. It's about 15 minutes, just as a piece of information, but it is designed as PBIS kind of moves into the curriculum instruction to really transition to help teachers establish a positive classroom climate and really focus on engagement. And this certainly gives them a lot of practical tips on how to improve your classroom virtually and also brick and mortar.
Well, could you
and
maybe
we have more
send
coming on the way.
Could you send the link to all the board members, or I have it on my phone. If
Certainly
maybe I
can,
could send it
absolutely.
to them, because it's that classroom expectation, and it's Good morning, PBIS team. Your new classroom climate engagement video is now live. Please visit. So could you send that to the board? Because it is
Certainly can.
really powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Terrific. Ms. Zoller, I think you had some questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, you made a comment, plugged and unplugged, and I'm assuming what that means is plugged means they have access to digital and they can get that, and unplugged means they don't. That's what I'm assuming. So how do you
That's right.
deliver, how do you deliver the unplugged? So how does that
Well,
happen?
that's a great question. So each remote learning plan represents about 10 days of continuous learning activities. So knowing that schools may have an environment where their students may not have access to the internet, these can be printed out and are self-contained. For example, some of the social studies lessons, you could print them out. As some of the schools were printing out and putting them in their lunch, as students were coming to pick up their lunches, they can mail these out, they can print them, and they're all self-contained. For example, the maps are already on the pages, so if there were a map activity, you didn't have to have access to the internet to continue the learning, and that was kind of the strategy, is like, what's the worst case scenario? You could use these in the classroom with a live instructor or virtual instructor, through the Teams or Zoom, but then in case when we had the worst case scenarios, nobody had internet, these would keep learning and they could be self-paced and self-directed.
So do the schools identify who is unplugged and they know to give them that, or are they giving it to everybody? I mean, because obviously, even unplugged, you got to have access to a printer, that kind of thing, so it's got to happen at the school level.
No, you're right. I mean, it's not. Again, these were designed to be supplemental. We try to pick out some of the standards that that teachers would recognize as being some tough standards to teach, and to really equip people with that. But you're right. You'd have to have a printer, but this would be something that at the building level and at the district level, especially in rural areas, that's how some of these were being used. The same thing with the early learning guides.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Are there any other questions or comments? Quiet group this morning. That's very, very unusual.
But again, I think for this, this is, will be ongoing, so it doesn't stop with the pandemic. So I think that's, we continue to look at supporting teachers and education. And it's a great resource for all of Georgia, so it's not just limited to, those that are public education. For anyone in the state, it's available to them, so.
I think, to the superintendent's point, that this ability to have unplugged and plugged at the same time is something that teachers have. Some teachers have always had in their utility belt, but now it needs to be it's best practice, and gets to. I was looking back at Keith about personalized learning. When you start really getting at maybe you don't need a printer. Maybe you need maybe the student has a PDF on their phone that they can fill out. Building instruction so that no matter where, if the teacher has students right next to them and at the same time at home or wherever they may be, these tools are excellent for that. And then the parent could also act as teacher, grandparent, whoever. I think these materials are great for that customized, personalized learning environment.
Well, because it's been so overwhelming, I think especially, obviously for teachers and for kids, but for those caregivers, the parents.
Absolutely.
I talk to parents every day that, even though we're mostly back in school, not everybody is back in school, and they're overwhelmed. They feel like their child's missing things, and so having these resources, and then especially in rural areas where we have spotty connection at best. It's good to have this backup here, and I'm sure the school systems know who these kids are and are getting those resources out to them.
Mike, could you?
Very important. Thank you.
Okay, terrific. All right, Superintendent Woods, is there any other items?
That's it, sir.
Okay, terrific. Helen, yesterday you mentioned wanting to bring something forward. I don't know if that was for today or...
Well, just in discussion, there were a couple of things. One thing I mentioned, and I talked to Kenneth about it. He and I serve on the Get Georgia Reading Board of Directors, but Ken has been there a year longer than I, and we had a great meeting, Zoom meeting. It was a long meeting, but some of this that we saw today was presented there too. But I asked Ken if he would kind of give the board an idea. I mean, I learned so much from the Get Georgia Reading Board that's going on in our state, and so.
Yeah, just a kind of a quick foundation of the idea, but you know, we see the impact of Get Georgia Reading campaign and how it is a statewide collective impact that wow, we're almost at running up on a decade, almost 10 years of this work of you know, so if we go back 10 years ago and look at the importance nationally of third grade, okay, looking at third grade reading scores, and that's transitioned from students learning to read and then transitioning to reading to learn. This collective impact comes out of that focus, but the unique approach that Get Georgia Reading campaign has is from the epidemiology that the approach that studied studied and diagnosed problems of literacy statewide, but looking at it not as solution oriented as a lot of times you get in the education industry. We're trying to fix a problem, but deeply looking at the root causes of it, and then coming up with this 4-pillar approach that looked at, you know, of course, what's most important in a lot of our eyes is the effectiveness of the teacher and their preparation. But then tracking back to access, who has access, and then looking at the core of what is called language nutrition. Who's getting access to words and when? And so, and then of course, how do we engage students? Positive learning and climate. So if you look at these pillars, and if you visit the Get Georgia Reading site, you'll see a lot of data that is around these pillars. But I think the special part about this campaign, this collective impact, is how it's drilled down to unique strategies in communities all around the state, but still connected to this overall goal. And we just saw one example of how this group can impact in a pandemic. And so that was our cabinet meeting. That was one of the first things that members talked about. Like, what pivots have you made since we met in November, since November? Now think about the importance of doing that on a state level, of having a group that's looking at this important issue that affects all of our children, but looking through the lens of what have we learned what did we learn in 2020? How have we shifted? What did the data say? And so I know Dr. Dooley, I don't know if she's on the line, but she's been an important, one of the pillars of the her knowledge and her experience. Not every state has a Caitlin Dooley, and having her and her knowledge as part of this collective impact has been jet fuel to, along with the rest of the department staff, in being able to support the real work of doing this in communities. And so if I don't know if there's anything else you wanted me to say, but I just want y'all to think about this. This campaign represents, okay, it's about literacy, but imagine it if you can see a public health and education meeting and in a sense organically building something else for communities. And that's where it is. It's we had presentations from the Department of Public Health. This is becoming an equal, like looking at this from both swaths in order to be able to impact communities and children that need it everywhere. So more to come, and I don't know if Superintendent, if there's anything you want to say or point out from Dr. Dooley's work with this, but important work that's circling the state.
Again, I just say this, I think it's, that this is an issue that's not just a Department of Education issue. It's not just a school issue, but it is something where all parts of Georgia can integrate. And I think that if we, working together and letting this be a focus, I mean, we benefit across the board. And so much of what we know about reading really starts before the kids even get into our schools. And it's trying to look at, especially with people in the Department of Health. I mean, they're the ones that, you think about people in the medical field, they deliver the children. So it starts once that baby, arrives, that the initiative of trying to get them to learn the importance of, we know of just, building their word bank up is extremely important, talking to, a child. So much of the research we know that, what happens or what does a child come to school with is so important. So I think, building upon these pillars, working within communities, which is a different, aspect of it as well. But a lot of great work, a lot of great things to come in the future.
And you've reminded me of does it begin when they're born? We had neonatal doctors, practitioners saying, well, let's look at before they were born. And you all, some of you all know, I had my son 8 years ago was in NICU, and we were reading in the tummy, but reading in the incubator, reading those, and I thought it was something to comfort me, to comfort him, but really the science says learning is happening, and important that young families should know that there is something you can do.
I do have something, Mr. Chairman, because this is very, very good. And I remember 10 years ago being here and kicking off this campaign. But right now, I just kind of have a little bit of an overwhelmed feeling on how are we going to make sure this gets to all those kids out there. This is great, and we need to celebrate this progress. But right now, you said something, what have we learned? How has it shifted in 2020? But right now, what my question is going through my mind is how many out there are getting it? How far is it going? How many? And as Leanne was talking this morning, we've got the shades are up in here, and they're not usually up. And I'm sitting here looking out, and on a clear day, I love the view from up here. It's beautiful. You can see past Stone Mountain that way. Behind me, you can see past the tower, past the Hartsfield. You can see the planes landing, and past that. How many kids within even what we can see, how many moms right now are sitting in an apartment or house looking at their children going, what do I do today?
How do you start?
How far are they? The question is not, are our kids getting further and further behind? It's how many and how far. And the challenge this is really hitting me right now, and it's something Trey said. How are we going to identify them? How are we going to measure it? And are we going to be honest with ourselves as a state? Or are we going to whistle past the graveyard because we don't want to know? It's not pretty. And doing that, and I guess what I want to know and challenge Superintendent, how are we doing in making it our mission every day to make sure this is getting to those parents and those kids unplugged? I was talking to a call him out. I didn't ask him if I could. A real good friend of mine who's on a very small school board in South Georgia. And I was asking him what they're doing. They've got some teachers doing amazing things. And he's like, I'm not worried about my kids and the kids here. He goes, I'm worried about the mom in the trailer on the outskirts of town who's got 4 kids and she's got a cell phone for Cricket Wireless. And that's how the instruction's being delivered. If we don't get in person and get those kids there, those kids are not going to get served unless we do something. I know we've got teachers on boards, but I also know we don't. Or there are trying, but that parent doesn't know how to step forward and how to best serve get what they need for their kid. Because this is the work that needs to be done. But I'm going to equate it to the board I'm on, and he's a food finder, Jack Griffin. We don't have a food shortage in America. We've got plenty of food. We've got plenty of people need it. What we have is a distribution issue. We're not getting the food to the people that need it, and that's what they're trying to do. We don't have a shortage of brilliant people here and doing great things. But I know there's some parents out there that aren't getting it, and it's not anybody's fault. We don't need to blame people. We just need to say, damn it, we got to figure out how to make it happen. And that's really looking at this right now. How are we going to do that? And what are we doing to make sure and drill down and really hit that this is getting to those parents, that mom on the outskirts of town who is staring at 3 kids right now going, what do I do? I don't know. I don't have the answer.
I mean, I think on the district level, they've done a very good job of getting a lot of this information out to all of those areas, at least within my school districts. But one thing I know that especially like in Gainesville City, and I bet you have it in Dalton City too, where there's a lot of English is not the first language speakers, and the parents are just as committed to trying to help their children, but they don't have the tools to do it. And so, I mean, I've seen that, but I have been extremely impressed. I had a meeting with my superintendents in the last couple of weeks, and I'm very impressed with how they've been able to identify the kids that need the extra help within their district, and they've been able to get the resources by school because the teachers know their students, the teachers, that kind of thing. But I agree with you, Mike, that there are, you know, the real cost of this pandemic is not just going to be in the lives that were lost. It's going to be in the loneliness of people that have been that you can't visit, that you can't be a part of their lives, and then it's going to be, you know, the COVID kids. I brought it up last March in the meeting. I think I've brought it up every single meeting since then that I've been involved in, is that what is going to be that impact? You know, my little grandson is finally going back to school in Kentucky. He's been out of school since last March, and he's a little afraid. You know, he's like, I'm a little nervous about it. And I said, well, he had a little pod where a teacher was there, so he's actually met his teacher, so he's got a leg up. But it's because my kids were able to provide that for him along with some other students. You know, what about the kids that are feeling different? So we're also going to be dealing, and I love that you're addressing the climate of these classrooms. That's important because these kids are coming from different backgrounds back in to a more structured environment, which I think they need, okay? I think they drastically need it. I love flexibility in education, okay? Don't get me wrong, but there has to be also a certain amount of rigidity in being sure you get the standards done and, you know, all of that sort of thing. So anyway, I know we're all kind of saying the same thing, but I think it's important, you know, that we look at the cost of this pandemic, not just in the cost of the cases and the lives. There's other costs that we're going to be dealing with probably for generations.
Were you going to say something, Fenna? Anybody else? Ms. Kenmore?
Well, I was just going to say, from that meeting, as Ken mentioned with the four pillars, I mean, DECAL was there. GPEE was there offering, I mean, it is a collaboration across the state. Mm-hmm. And Richard, the DOE was very well represented, not just from other agencies were talking about some things. They were talking about rethinking the educational models, personalized learning. They were talking about the Great Grant. They were talking, pardon?
I said DECAL is always there.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. They were talking about this reinventing education, this success, to rethink and reinvent robust educational models that align between pre-K and K-12 education. So, I mean, that's just a thimble full of what was discussed that day. But in what Mike was saying and what Martha was saying, there are so many great things that are going on right here. And I know the schools are needing those supports from the DOE too. So, and maybe a way to, Mike, to help it get out there is for us to hear more from DOE. I'd love for people to be here so that we can see it but talk about these things, educate this board about these things so we can go back to our districts. I have 186 schools in my district. How great to be able to send them something and say, hey, and I know you send things out to superintendents and you send it out to principals, but they get millions of things. It's probably like, sometimes as a mayor, you get so much that sometimes some of those things go by. But the more we learn collectively as a board about what goes on at DOE and the individual departments here and identify with those people and can talk about it in our districts, the better ambassadors we're going to be for all that 1.8 million students across this state. And that's a lot. I mean, these are notes from that meeting, this many. From the Mary Poppins bag. And so we got great things going on. And I know, Keith, you're making a lot of that happen on that personalized learning, that platform. That's why I said, show it to us, because you can show us how you can move from here to here with teachers, how they can go in the classroom plugged and unplugged. And I have to admit, I was a little disappointed that you didn't get to see the video about the classroom expectation. It was powerful. And you presented or talked about it across the street, Richard, the 2 weeks before. When I called and I said, oh my God, I just saw this. I know, but you talked about it, but I got it online. So we got great things going. I'm like everybody, I think we're ready to fire one.
Yeah, we do have a lot of great things going, and just like Kenneth said, Mr. Mason said, get Georgia reading. Ariane Weldon, she's doing a phenomenal job there, and partnering with organizations like that, and the Deal Center and Decal and all is good. And I think having a vehicle to communicate and get it out there, I think that's one of our biggest challenges. And I've always said from the beginning, connecting with the parents at home, and with the Georgia Home Classroom, I've always said, that we learn and we teach, and it all begins in the home. Education, everything, teaching is in the home. What do you teach? And parents, they just need somebody to come alongside them and just help them along the way. And just like, other people here, I have a grandson who's little in pre-K, and if it weren't for the fact that my son and daughter had the means to make sure that his education continued on, I don't know if he would even be at the level that he is right now with us working with him. So, parents, there are a lot of parents out there, just like Mike said, who are just, pulling their hair because they really don't know what to do because they're not connected, or they have spotty connections and all. And I don't know how we're going to solve that, but this is something good that will give guidelines and supports for families out there who are really desperately in need and want their kids to have the best quality education available. And I thank you, Superintendent Woods, as well as the people in DOE for helping to push this forward. We just, I don't know how it's going to happen, but we just got to continue to do more and more and more.
Well, there's something going on with the whole child. I think we got, Can you speak to that a minute, Richard? There's a seminar going on that is.
Yeah, I think it must be with Ms. Harris, I think.
It is.
Yeah. Again, just, trying to, and again, it's a lot of a meeting with individuals throughout the state. Again, when you talk about whole child, you're not talking about just education, but trying to meet needs, other, such as, mental health. I mean, a lot, of course, I think Ms. Zoller, you kind of mentioned that's an issue of all these young people and even parents, teachers being isolated. What does that look like? I think transitioning back into schools or, continuing that. So, one of the commitments we've had is looking at going beyond the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. Is a child, ready to learn? And again, that means nutrition. I mean, one of the things we have done, since day one, and I appreciate Dr. Dobson and her team. I mean, providing meals to kids. We have probably become the largest delivery service of food in the state, to be honest. And, that's something I think we, have, last count, we're over 111,000 or 11 million meals that have been served. So, that's a commitment, and we're continuing to address those needs and how can we support our local districts. Each one's a little bit different in their resource as well.
Scott, I don't know if this is a appropriate time after we move on with this, but at some point, when we get to another discussion item, as we get to I know the health standards are coming up, but is there a time that we can talk about, because the math standards are coming up next month? So let me know when that is. That time is, because
Yeah, and I've already spoken with superintendent's office relative to the math standards and so forth, and the conversations that you and I've had, as well as with Lisa. I know there's some tweaks that are still being completed, and we also talked about a communication plan with regard to getting the when they're going to be coming up for posting. Number 2, and then number 3 is a little bit of the background with regard to how all the standards came together in the process. And I've talked to Matt Jones about that as well. So that's something we'd like to pull forward for the next month.
Okay. Well, and we've asked Richard this before. Is it okay that we take those standards within our districts and have, our teachers look at them and make suggestions before we post them? I know that, and I'm sure a lot of others have, but Lisa and I have gone through a lot of them, and I think they're very well formatted, and I think the teachers will be real pleased with the clarity and some of the objective ideas. But there's still questions about where is foundations of algebra. We'd like to know. We've asked those. What's happening to foundations of algebra, and what about technical college readiness, English and math? Where will that be? What will be going on with those subjects at some point? And, we were privileged to be able to go on the Citizens Review Committee, and I mentioned to Scott, and I think Lisa and I had a conversation with Scott about that. Maybe we could have some people from the working committee, the teachers that were there, and Leah Snell, her group, and there were 3 people on the Citizens Review Committee. And I did bring the list of the 3 names of people, Scott, to give you that were there that facilitated K-5, middle school and high school. And so just to have someone here and us be able to talk with them as we go out, I think the more educated we are on those, the better we will be. And we talked about this. So is it okay, Richard, if we take them and let the districts look at them? Okay. Thank you.
All right.
I just want to say, with the understanding that it may not be the final product of what you have.
We'll get that before we come to the next meeting, though, won't we?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we should get that.
Yeah, I mean, it should, what you have been sent is pretty set, I think, especially K through 8. We're looking at some clarity with some of the high school
Was that
content.
the Algebra 2?
Just algebra now, yeah. Algebra 2, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
But okay, you have basically everything. I mean, I don't foresee anything that would be drastic, but there were just some things at the high school level we were trying to clarify.
Okay, thank you.
I want to make some comments on the stuff we were just speaking about before this. Kenneth and Lisa and I met with some families yesterday, and it was call it very eye-opening discussion. And you'll forgive me for making this step, but I don't think there's anybody that'll disagree, is that without question, I don't think there's a member of this board that thinks that virtual learning is the best option. Okay, I think it's safe to say that every member of this board, and I know that Superintendent Woods feels the same way, wants to get students in a face-to-face learning environment. I think we understand that that's the best of all. You know, my heart bleeds for the single parent, you know, that has children that they're trying to educate, and that single parent is committed to working as well. And how is that student learning? And can you imagine a kindergarten student learning virtually? Okay, in an unsupervised environment, and hopefully that's not the case. I think about families that the only option they have for virtual learning is connecting to a hotspot in the parking lot. Yeah. And you have imagine that family, and they're in a car together, and it's a hot summer spring day. And the air conditioning's running, the car's running. How long are they in the car? And you have a mother or father, their caretaker. You have more than one child in a car trying to learn at the same time. Nobody thinks that this is an ideal situation. I applaud the Assembly and the Governor's office because I know that they are aggressively pursuing better broadband initiatives. The kicker there, and we all know this, that's an infrastructure project. It's not something that's going to be solved tomorrow. So access will continue to be an issue, and you know, if there's anything you know, that can be done to improve that in a greater rate, that would be beneficial for students. It's my hope that in the 2021-2022 school year is that all schools are providing some form of a in-person option. And obviously 100% would be incredible, but you know, working towards that is that there are districts that are challenged, and there are districts today that are still 100% virtual, and there is learning loss. There is no question that there is learning loss. And despite the marvelous work that teachers across the state of Georgia are doing under the circumstances, you know, they're to be applauded. I think everybody's trying to give it their best shot. I think some are doing it with greater success than others. And at the end of the day, we have a very diverse learning call it a learning environment with more than 180 systems and so forth, all trying to do the very, very best they can. And I think somebody used the term guardrails, or the, you know, kind of, you know, staying within their lanes. Is like figuring out what those lanes are, always for the betterment of the children. And I know that everybody on the board has that in mind, and I know that Superintendent Woods shares that as well. So I want to just share those things. Before moving on, we also do have a Middle Georgia RESA update from Julie Alligood, the director, and I believe she's doing this virtually. So Julie, are you there? Julie?
I am.
Okay. We hear you. Thank
Here. Okay, can you still hear me?
Yes, you can. And we see your slide as well.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much. I appreciate your giving us a few minutes today to talk about our little service agency, Middle Georgia RESA. We are one of 16 service agencies, and each service agency takes on a little bit different look, just based on the needs in their area. If you'll look at slide 2, I told Matt Cardoza, who is a wonderful liaison with the RESA, that I could do this in 5 minutes, so I decided to put together a picture of everything that we did. And you'll see that there seems to be a lot. We at RESA touch a lot of things, and we have a lot of partnerships, and we appreciate our partnership with the Georgia Department of Education, particularly the School Improvement Division. I can't say enough about the work that Dr. Johnson and her crew do with us, and We feel like we have a very strong partnership with them. We work closely with the PSD with our endorsements. We run a lot of programs for the Governor's Office of Student Achievement. And of course, we work hand in hand with all of the Gale affiliates to support those schools and to reach all the teachers and ultimately all the students. So we feel like we're one of those support agencies that can touch those districts like Ms. Rice was talking about. COVID has brought along a lot of stress, I think, for not just the teachers, but for all of us trying to get out there and help those teachers. But I'll say that in my 29 years of experience in education, I don't think that there has been a time that that I have felt such unity in education. And I think from that unity and being united against that common enemy of COVID has really brought a lot of strength among all these organizations working together. And at RESA, we're pleased to be a part of that. Moving on to slide 3. It's not all about the numbers, it's about the children. But I felt like to give you a little picture of our RESA and some of the things that we do, I wanted to share just a few numbers with you today. We serve 8 districts: Bibb, Crawford, Houston, Jasper, Jones, Monroe, Peach, and Twiggs. Our largest district has almost 33,000 students, and our smallest district has about 700 students. So you can imagine the different needs that these size systems have as they work to help students and to grow student achievement in their districts. We also serve 2 charter schools, Cirrus Academy and ACE Academy. One of the big things that sort of sets our RESA apart is we have a number of endorsements, and these are opportunities for teachers to add these enhancements to their certificate. We also have 2 leader certification programs, and of course the TAP, the Georgia TAP teacher certification program. Presently, we are serving 944 teachers from across 95 districts in the state. And just to give you an example, because of COVID, we had an endorsement from the online teaching endorsement, and we would run it every year, and we would have maybe one cohort of 20 or 30 teachers. And with the changing landscape of COVID and with all of the online education, we are serving 337 candidates from across Georgia this year in the online teaching endorsement program. Another, the gifted endorsement, which is always strong, we're serving 167 teachers. And I think that that is a great testament to teachers across the state wanting to really stretch students and grow them as far as they can. So hats off to those teachers. We host 2 statewide professional conferences each year with an average attendance of about 320 educators. One of those conferences is really for instructional leaders, particularly for instructional coaches. We at RESA spend a lot of time developing instructional coaches across the state because we feel like that they are so integral in helping teachers reach students and really growing that capacity of teachers in their buildings. And so it's great to be able to feed them and watch them grow so that they can in turn grow those students, or those teachers and students. Along with the Georgia Department of Education and Dr. Johnson's division, we at Middle Georgia RESA serve 10 comprehensive needs improvement schools in 3 districts in our region. Here we impact 416 teachers and 5,190 students. Since July, even in COVID, we have had 123 professional learning sessions with an attendance of 2,081 attendees. And our little RESA only has 9 full-time educators, 12 part-time educators, 7 consultants, 5 adjunct staff, and 6 support staff. So we are really spinning our wheels to try to help where we can to support the schools and the teachers. We've delivered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pallets of PPE, and we were excited to be a part of that. Thanks so much to the Georgia Department of Education working with GEMA to get those needed supplies out. We have trained 150 SPED induction teachers over 2 years, and we know that that is a huge need, and that ever-growing support and keeping that going has been a real charge for us at Middle Georgia RESA. We support 60 assistant principals not just in our region, but across the state, who wanted to partner with us. We manage $3.2 million of local, state, and federal funds and grants that we're constantly trying to maximize so that we can get the most bang for our buck for our kids. We've conducted 400 classroom observations for teachers who serve at-risk students, and we have hosted many HR seminars across the last 2 years, and the last one we served 72 professionals from across the state. And through email correspondence and whatnot, we reach about 29,000 educators across the state. So I say all that to say not how wonderful we are, but we are working diligently, and we're looking for every opportunity to help teachers and students across the state grow a little bit more every day, because we do want to be a little bit better tomorrow than we were today. Not only, though, have we been working with education and trying to grow achievement, but we've also taken a special look this year at growing people and growing children and meeting them where they are with a spirit of kindness and help and love, quite frankly. April Stott, in her new children's book, shares a quote that we've kind of embraced this year at Middle Georgia RESA, and it says, "When the world gets dark as winter's night, share some kindness, bring some light." And we've really tried to be that light for a lot of educators, even the ones in the endorsement. We've really been working hard on building relationships, because teachers, quite frankly, are drowning these days, and they're working so hard to fill those gaps. And we just appreciate the partnerships that we have and the opportunity that we have to help and be a part of that. And I think that just about wraps me up. We take our spirit of service very seriously at Middle Georgia RESA. And I think my last slide has a quote on it that says, "The thing that lies at the foundation of positive change, the way I see it, is to service a fellow human being." And we feel like to get better every day in education, we are growing and changing, and we love to be a part of that service. And thanks to Superintendent Woods for giving me a few minutes today, and to the State Board of Education to be able to share a little bit about our service agency. And that very last slide is a commitment to our growing and our servicing our area and the state of Georgia. And if you have any questions, please feel free to call me. And Matt, I'm not sure if that was 5 minutes, but it couldn't have been too much longer than 5 minutes. But I hope you understood a little bit.
David Mosley
is now joining.
Are there any comments or questions? It looks like Mike Long.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Julie, I tell you what, all of it was good, because I'm a big believer in the RESAs. I've got First District and Okefenokee, good friends with Justin up north and everything else. You guys are doing great work. I'll be honest with you, this last slide is original and encouraging. And
Butch, I'm sorry. Butch, could you mute your microphone, please?
Just shoot that bird that's in the room with you.
Thank you.
Probably want a cracker. Anyway, Julie, I appreciate what you guys are doing, of course, all over state. But this last slide, to me, is just kind of inspirational because of the growth. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions?
No, I feel the same way. I'm a big supporter of our RESAs, and boy, have they grown and helped and reached out into all of our districts. And I don't think our districts could survive without them. They've been.
They're amazing support organizations. So, Kenneth, did you? All right. Any other comments? All right, Dr. Alligood, thank you very much for your presentation. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Move on to the chair's report items, and just want to bring up a couple of things. We are required to host a listening session annually, and to be concluded by the end of the fiscal year. So that is by June 30th. There's a coordination aspects, because it does, I think, there's a Godot representation that appears there. These are 1 hour listening sessions. Kenneth mentioned that he has done these in the past, where he's held a town hall preceding the listening session. But if you would, make sure that you get on the calendar and get that coordinated in your respective congressional district. And please work with Ms. Caputo on those items for the reservation of schools et cetera, and what your desired dates are. And there's some particular requirements with regard to like date, time, and that kind of stuff, and I know that Debbie has that information. So please get that done. And clearly, doing this virtually is an option as well. But if you're available to do it in person, it can be hosted in person, and there's a venue that works for you. I mean, that would certainly be an option. The retreat. I'd like you to hold some dates open for the last week of April, and I'm working on coordinating with the governor's office for the governor's availability to attend. I've got a meeting this afternoon over there, so I hope to have an update following that meeting. Talked about the listening sessions, and I will have further information relative to the retreat. Some topics I know that we have already previously discussed during the for the agenda would be some discussion regarding testing, some charter discussion, accountability, and also, and Superintendent Woods, I don't know, to the extent that you would be prepared at that point in time, but also to kind of have a discussion about the plans for the 2021-2022 school year and what that's going to look like. If you have additional items that you would like to have us consider as an agenda for the, and it will be a working session for the retreat, please let me know. And if you could get your recommendations to me by the end of this week, that would be, well, I tell you what, if you get it to me by the middle of next week, on a Wednesday at the latest, that would be great. Scott Johnson brought up a real great idea to me a short while ago, and what that idea was is that Mr. Royal and I and others on this board have talked about the state board accountability. And if you go through Georgia Code, there are a tremendous amount of, and we kind of refer to this as the shall language. The State Board of Education shall, and there are numerous references that are in there. And Scott had an incredible idea, which is to have the Carl Vincent Institute actually do a compare and contrast. Number one, what truly is this board responsible for from an accountability side, and what is actually being done? All right, and where there are gaps, how do we fill the gaps? And there are probably some cleanup things with regard to language within Georgia Code that potentially will be unveiled at the same time. I can think of a recent facilities item, for example, that I brought to someone's attention. So this board does not necessarily have a discretionary budget. Okay, so in order to find the funds for that, again, I'm going to be having a conversation with the governor's office regarding that, and hopefully I'll have an update for you as well. All right, any questions about that? Okay, and then lastly, after much deliberation, much thought and careful consideration, and talking to lots of people, we will be reconvening the Charter and Flexibility Committee. All right. The first meeting of that committee will be held in March. Superintendent Woods for that meeting, and I don't know what is on the agenda with regard to any pending approvals or anything like that, but at a minimum, I certainly would love to have a pipeline update during that. We will have a more, and I want to applaud Mr. Royal for his passion with regard to this. I know it's passion for a number of people, but one thing I did is that I went through and I took a look at and I read each and every note for the meeting minutes for all of the 2018 and the 2019 year. And, there was 8 meetings that were held in 18 and 6 meetings that were held in 19. And Mike and I have talked about this. It may not be necessary that the Charter and Flexibility Committee meet each and every month. Okay, so it really is kind of dependent on what the workload is at that particular time. But there will be a number of applications that are continually coming up through the pipeline. And one of the things, And Alan Muller and his group is largely responsible for vetting a lot of these applications as they come up. And I think one of the things that is really important to the board as a whole is, are people living up to the measure of their flexibility? Okay, and with COVID, that's kind of thrown a wrench into a lot of things. Unquestionably, I think we all know that. Yet at the same time, we are going to be charged with, approvals and so forth. And there are instances where people are knocking the ball out of the park. They're doing everything that they said they're going to be doing. And it's really kind of a thing, in my vision, it would be kind of having a scorecard. And the scorecard is saying, this is what you said you were going to do, this is what you're doing, this is where the opportunities lie. Oh, and by the way, you're also seeking additional opportunities over here. My hope is that vetting is entirely done by the Georgia Department of Education. Okay? And that, we're kind of looking at it from a review standpoint, and what we're getting information that's showing us what that scorecard looks like, before we're actually going to the approval process. All right, so that'll be the nature of it. I have not yet appointed a chair. I'm interested in learning from you who may have interest in being the chair of that committee. So I will make my decision based on that. And also for volunteers and members, Helen graciously suggested that everybody should be on the committee. Yet at the same time, I recognize the schedules that everybody has, their work commitments and everything. So, but we will reconvene this committee, and I wanted to make that known. So that was it. And are there any questions or comments?
That's a great step.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, because I've sat in that chair too, and I know how hard it is to try to run effective meetings and not having committees and meetings just for the sake of having meetings. We've all got it. And I think you just hit the nail right on the head of where that committee needs to go, because one of the members, I don't remember if it was Trey or I think it was Leanne, saying we were standing on shoulders of those before us. There has been a lot of work to go into what we discussed in the last 2 years of meetings. They all went really, really smooth because of the work of staff and the charter staff and the Godot staff and the committees that had it. It was the contracts that are out there, in my opinion, are good. And there's a lot of real good work that's been done. And I think this committee moving forward, accountability is one of the key measures in their contracts for flexibility. It's flexibility with accountability. That's been the whole premise, and it's going to be tough to measure the accountability side. I think one of the things this committee really needs to look at as we're moving forward is we're going to have gaps in that data. But I really think we need to prioritize as a committee, and to my thoughts this morning, okay, we don't have your accountability data, but I mean, in my votes, God willing, if I'm here or not, you never know. The only, as Dennis said in her inspiration, the only day we were guaranteed, the last one we were guaranteed is the one we got this morning. Who the heck knows what's going on? But what are those districts doing to identify the children that are getting left behind, and how far are they behind, and what are they going to do to get them caught up? What is their plan? And I'm not trying to take too much time on it, but when I was chairman, I was serving on a panel, and one of the panelists asked, it was a fluff question, what's your hardest thing in your job as chair? I said, oh, that's easy. And they're like, oh, that's an easy question. I said, yes, setting public policy for 180 traditional districts and now over 100 charter districts throughout the state of Georgia, in Atlanta, policy that affects those districts when you have such diversity of the districts and the charters and everything. So looking at those charter contracts as they are, what's best in Twin City is not going to be what's best for Gwinnett County. And recognizing the independence and the flexibility, but making them give us a plan, because it's impossible to do this statewide from here, saying, here's your accountability, we have to hold those districts accountable to identifying and coming up with a plan and measuring in an honest and transparent basis, what are they going to do post-pandemic with these COVID kids? That's great, Martha. Thank you so much for your comments on that, because that's it. These COVID, what are you going to, who are they and how are you going to help them? And that, to me, needs to be the accountability part to lead to their continued flexibility.
And can I add something to that, Mike? On top of that, you talked about a broad net of people that were involved in that. And so to hear these people that come up and talk about their charter schools, it offers every one of us some food for information to say, hey, we heard so-and-so did this, and you might want to try this in your system. So the overlapping or collaboration of from the 10th district to the 3rd district or whatever we hear from these different charter schools with the broad net of people that are here, I just think it makes it easier and also opens up more doors for our systems to know, well, this has been done here, this could be something. And DOE gives a great idea through their charter, through that group. You know, they'll look at the charters and they'll make suggestions of how they can move those charters forward with their commitment to accountability. So I think it's great. Thank you for doing that.
My pleasure. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Dan.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Good. First of all, I think these are the conversations that we ought to be having, and I'm glad we are. And I appreciate the comments that have been made so far, both about the learning loss, finding these students who are struggling and addressing those needs, and also the, kind of a related conversation about charters. I think my response to the first question, and if Dr. Dooley and her team are still on the line, they'll probably agree with this. They are collaborating with several organizations around this state, and we've heard them named already. There are others. My thought on this is that somebody knows who these children are, and those somebodies are typically located at the county and city level. And if we can develop a network for this, I think we can first identify the students and their parents and their families that are struggling with online learning and virtual learning and learning loss, and try to address it. And there are a lot of great examples, and I've just heard some of the other board members talk about this. There are great examples all over this state where things are going on, and those could be shared. And I'm all in favor of that as well. As far as the Charter and Flexibility Committee, I think that the conversation and your comments about the accountability side of it are right on target, and I just want to add my support to that recommendation and hope that we can re-engage that process, and I'd be glad to be a part of it.
Thank you very much, Stan.
I think Stan had the first charter school. Well, is that not right, Stan?
I had the first primary charter school, I did, and I had one of the first charter systems. We were not in the first group of 5, but we were, the system level was right behind that. But in Cartersville, I think we were the first elementary charter, well, after College Park. I think College Park may have been first. But we were up at the head of the line, yes.
Well, thank you for your service there, too.
Leonte or Dr. Mosley, do you have any comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. We provided a presentation that the superintendent gave to one of the committees, state or the Senate or the House, not sure, and it gave a great summary of the school districts and what learning options they had. It was virtual, a hybrid. Can that be updated and sent to the state board so we can see what all the school systems are offering as of the latest information we have?
Yes. Matt, was that
There was a one-page graphic that was sent recently.
Yeah, it was included in a presentation the superintendent gave. I think it was a budget presentation.
It's been a couple of, the House and Senate presentations.
Yeah. But it was included in that presentation. It was a really great summary just to show all the school systems and what they're offering.
We'll give you the latest.
Okay, thank you.
And then Matt, there was I think Debbie forwarded a graphic that illustrated that. It was one page. Did you receive that?
I'll go back and check. I'm not sure.
That should be the latest map we had.
Okay.
I think that was this week or.
It was sent out either early this week or late last week, one of the two. But
It was after my House presentation.
Okay.
all right. Are there any further questions or comments? This is a surprisingly quiet group today, but at the same time, passionate as always. And again, just to wrap things up, it's really enjoyed the comments that we heard from Trey Allen and from Lee and Cowart, and we wish them the best in their future ventures. Appreciate everybody's comments that they shared with them as well. And thank you for all you do for the students within Georgia, the families and the teachers. We know these are challenging times and will continue to be challenging times, and we know that everybody is giving their very, very best. So with that, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
I have a motion for Mr. Donaldson, who's quick on the draw every time.
I don't wait for motions.
And is there a second?
I would wait a second, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Long. Is there any-
David Mosley.
Is now exiting.
He will not be here for the vote to adjourn. The chair will entertain the vote. All those in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone.